Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Saul?
Hi. How are you?
Good, good, good. Good to see you. I was on another screen, so
Very,
I didn't notice you.
very late here.
Yeah, late here too. Is it 10 o'clock in Honduras?
Nicaragua.
Oh, Nicaragua. I forgot. Is it 10 o'clock?
No, it's 9 o'clock, but
9
it's
o'clock.
late here.
Yeah, it's
Everybody is sleep in this hour.
uh-huh. Yeah, no, for me, I don't ever notice that anymore because I live alone, so nobody else is sleeping here. But um, yeah, how have things been?
Fine. Here I am. I am. See you. Your topic is it how I say how can I say it bring my attention because I was reading right now. I was reading an image about Syrian. It's a little funny because they they try to explain the problem in Middle East, and it
Mhm.
is very confused.
Yeah, super complicated. Nobody knows what's going on in the Middle East.
I
Even people who say they do don't.
Yeah, I want I want to share with you the image I was reading. It is very funny because if you did that article, you will think, oh, that is a whole mess. That
Yeah, let's see. Sir, Iran is backing Assad. Gulf states are against Assad. Assad is against Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood and Obama are against General Sisi. But the Gulf states are pro-Sisi, which means they are against Muslim Brotherhood. Iran is pro-Hamas, but Hamas is backing Muslim Brotherhood. Obama is backing Muslim Brotherhood, yet Hamas is against the U.S. Gulf states are pro-US, but Turkey is with the Gulf states against Assad. Yet Turkey is pro-Muslim Brotherhood against General Sisi, and General Sisi is being backed by the Gulf states. Welcome to the Middle East and have a nice day. Yes,
yeah, I saw that it's a mix. I can't believe that.
this is something that is so normal, Saul, that it's almost at the point of this little piece does an amazing job of describing the situation.
Really,
Yeah,
I was reading the article and I was saying, oh my God, I don't understand nothing. Everybody hates to everybody, and everybody help to another.
yep, yep, yep. That's exactly how it is. At the beginning, I mean, nothing. So at the beginning, it makes sense. Uh, so up to where he says Iran is pro-Hamas, but Hamas is backing Muslim Brotherhood. Up to that point, everything is good. But then after that, when he says Obama is backing Muslim Brotherhood, I don't know if that is actually true. Um, Yet Hamas is against the U.S. That is definitely true. Gulf states are pro-U.S. That's also right. But Turkey is with the Gulf states against Assad. Yet Turkey is pro-Muslim Brotherhood against General Sisi. Yes, that part is also true. And General Sisi is being backed by the Gulf states. Yeah, it's all true. You know, it is all true. Honestly, I had to read it a few times to understand. This is something that is true. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I guess this article condensed all in a few words.
Yeah, it's crazy because the situation in the Middle East right now is, you have all these players, right? You have everybody from Iran and Hamas to Gulf states and Turkey. All of these people are playing this game, but the people who are really losing everything in this game are the citizens of Syria, right? The 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 innocent civilians in Syria are the ones that are getting completely. Nobody is talking about them. right? So when we look at the situation from the perspective of the Syrian civilians, right, the Syrian civilians were driven from their homes, right? Many of these people have fled their homes because they have no way of staying where they are, right? If they stay, then they'll get killed. Or some of these groups are going to say, you can't live here, you need to get out, you know. The biggest thing about Syria right now is that the Syrian military is still fighting this civil war with the militias, right? So there are all of these militia groups throughout Syria who have, each one has their own agenda, right? And they're all fighting with each other. So one militia group, let's say militia group A, hates militia group B, but doesn't hate militia group C as much, right? So A and C kind of like each other. B hates both of them, right? And they're fighting, all three of them, right? So let's say one town is controlled by militia A, the town next door is controlled by militia B. One day the militia B comes to the first town and kills everybody, right? Just comes in and kills everyone in the city, right? I mean, when that kind of thing happens, nobody in the surrounding area will want to stay, right? So everybody, all the civilians are fleeing. Many of them are going to Turkey. Turkey is the closest stable country, right? Because if you're in Syria, you have a lot of you have a lot of trouble, right? There are no friendly countries nearby. You have Iraq. Iraq is not a friendly place, right? And then you have Turkey, and then you have Jordan, Lebanon, and Israel. Israel is off limits. Nobody's going to Israel. Nobody's going to Lebanon. Jordan, some people, and Turkey, a lot of people are going there, right? They're just going to the border and they're saying, enough is enough, I can't move on, you know. And now we have millions of refugees, right, in these refugee camps in Turkey. Some are in Jordan, and it's a very, very, very sad situation, right? Millions of people, thousands of children, right? We don't know what the situation is. I mean, we don't know who is going to help them or what's going to happen, you know.
And what is malicious?
What is malicious?
Yes.
Oh, militias. Okay, militia. A militia is an armed group, right? It's not a military. It's smaller than a military. It's a group of people that have a common goal, but they are armed, right? So it's an armed group. It's a small armed army, right? So, for example, many of these revolutionary groups, many of these terrorist groups, they call themselves militias or freedom militias or things like that, right? A lot of the drug lords in Central America and in South America, they have their own militias, right? If you read about a group called FARC, FARC is in Colombia. They used to be in Colombia a lot, but their army is the Colombian army has made a lot of progress. FARC is a militia group. There's a group called in Central America. There's a group called, I think, MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha Trece, I think, and they are a group. They're also a militia, right? They are a drug lord, or they're a drug
Yeah, they are
drug lords, I guess, right?
they are the biggest gangs in Central America.
Yeah,
They are from Salvador.
El Salvador. Yeah, exactly, right. And they have militias. They have armed groups of people that are, you know, fighting for their power or things like that. So that's a militia. And now in Syria, you see multiple militias, right? You see different groups with different ideologies. One group supports this guy, another group supports this guy. They're all fighting, they're all killing, and the Syrian army is killing all of them, right? The Syrian army is fighting for the government, and they are fighting this constant war, right? The problem in the Middle East, like we heard from Saul, Saul's link at the very beginning of the chat window, Eka, is really good. It shows you how complicated the situation is, right? But now these different militias have different countries supporting them. Some of the Middle Eastern countries are supporting some of these militias. Other countries, like Iran, they're supporting the actual Syrian army, right? So, very difficult situation. In the middle of all of this, the actual civilians are getting killed, which is what's really, really sad. Um,
Yeah, I have a question for both of you.
yeah, go ahead.
uh,
Yeah.
would would you call militias in Syria groups
hmm
of freedom?
Groups of freedom
Group of
fighters.
yes, group of
Freedom fighter.
freedom fighter.
Um, honestly, I would not call them that. No.
Oh,
Yeah.
why not?
Because we don't know if what their definition of freedom is. Uh, none of these groups are doing things that will benefit the Syrian people in a positive way, right? My understanding so far, just from what I've been reading, is a lot of these groups are maybe they're religiously motivated or they have different agendas, right? And if you look at the situation in Libya, Libya had the same problem, right? So if you look at Libya, all of these militias were fighting against the one guy, Gaddafi. Gaddafi was their leader for maybe 40 years, right? And what happened when they killed Gaddafi? Now the militias can't agree on anything, right? They
Oh,
they they have a transitional government. They have a government in place, but nobody knows what they're doing, right? One militia, all of the militias believe that they have equal right to the government because they all died and they all fought for freedom, right? But now, who knows what's going on? They can't agree on anything. There's no plan in place, right? From what I've seen, in terms of my basic understanding, there is no plan. So, looking at Libya as an example, I have no idea what's going to happen in Syria with these different groups.
oh,
Um,
so they expected for something better, but it turns out that things goes worse, right?
I mean, initially, maybe these groups, maybe the people who started to fight against the government, right, 2 years ago, right? Maybe those initial people really wanted what was best for the country, right? Or what was best for the people. Now, 2 years later, the situation on the ground has changed so much that you have one group saying this, another group saying this, a third group saying that, a fourth group saying we hate all of them, right? So who do you believe? I mean, there is no leadership, there's no one point of view, right? There's no united front against the Syrian army right now. As a result of that, I think it's a very difficult situation. We can't tell. Saul, you can go ahead. I'm sorry, I took a long time.
I
No.
I I'm not going to say nothing. I don't have nothing to opinion because I don't have the knowledge to talk about that topic. The only I know is what I read in the news. For example, today I read Arabia Saudite.
Uh-huh.
Today,
Saudi Arabia, uh-huh.
What? What is the pronunciation?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Uh-huh.
Today say that they they will cut the relationship with the United States because they couldn't fight with the war in Syria.
hmm
So the Arabia Saudi is 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 in favor to the war. So
Yeah,
it's a way to pressure the United States because they want the war.
they rejected.
It's not only the United States. The Arabia Saudi it has to be there in something.
Yeah, they rejected their Security Council seat. Um, Saudi Arabia was elected to the Security Council for the UN, which is a big deal. I mean, only like 10 countries are on that Security Council. 5 of them are or I think maybe there's 10 that are rotating, or 7 to 10 that are rotating, and the 5, permanent members: China, America, Russia, France, and England, right? So Saudi Arabia was elected to one of those rotating seats for 2 years, but they rejected that seat because they said the UN is not doing enough to help the people in Syria, to actually make peace in Syria, as well as in Palestine. But Palestine is a completely different situation. So yeah, I think this is the first time in UN history, in the history of the United Nations, that a country has rejected to be on the Security Council. It takes a long time to get that honor, right? And they used it as a way to say, we need to make improvements. So, hey, we have someone from Saudi Arabia here. Lucky KSA Omar, how's it going?
I'm fine, teacher. Thank you. And I think I have different opinions with you.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Let's
Yeah.
share.
I think Saudi Arabia angry because the new relationship with Iran. Like they don't like when US talk with Iran, and they don't uh, the US don't do something to Syria with the president, and I think that's the problem with Saudi Arabia. But I don't think the Saudi will do something big to cut the relationship. We don't live like before 15 years with the prince, the prince Faisal when he cut the oil from US. I don't think that will happen again. We can't see the people in the past now. The people now just thinking about the relationship and what the best for the Saudi Arabia government.
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable point, Omar. What Omar is saying, Saul, is actually very indicative of what we were reading in your article, in your piece. So recently, Iran and the United States have had a thaw in relations, right? Actually no, the president of Iran called Obama, and Obama is kind of quiet on the Iran issue, right? He didn't say anything against Iran opening up a little bit. There are negotiations happening right now, actually, between some of the European countries and the United Nations Atomic Agency group, or whatever that is, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association. They are talking with Iran, and maybe things will get better between Iran and the United States. And this is something that Saudi Arabia cannot tolerate, because for 75
Israel
years...
too.
Well, Israel is always going to be a problem with Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Muslim world, right? America has a very special relationship with Israel, which a lot of the Muslim countries don't like. But in the case of Iran specifically, for the last 40 years, since 1979, when they had their Islamic Revolution, right? Iran has been kind of the enemy number one of Saudi Arabia. Maybe enemy number 2 after Israel, right? But definitely enemy number 1 or 2. And
Yes.
now
Well, number 1 is Israel.
number 1 is
Iran.
Israel, but the thing is, nobody can attack Israel because they are very strong, and Saudi Arabia would not attack them. So it's not number 1 really. It's Israel is just always going to be someone that they don't like, right? And as for Iran, though, that is a country that they really don't like. Saudi Arabia really does not like Iran. Bahrain really does not like Iran. A lot of these other countries near Saudi Arabia really don't like Iran. So the fact that the United States is showing a little bit of friendship, or maybe not friendship, but just isn't openly saying anything anti-Iran, this, I think, is agitating people in the Saudi government. So,
I guess the big problem that have Obama right now is the Obama have a lot of friends, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other countries that hate, for example, Iran or Syria.
mhm.
Okay, and that friend is saying to Obama, okay, we need to attack Syria, we need to attack Syria, we need to and attack Syria. So the big problem of Obama is Russia, because Russia is only seeing Obama from the distance. He in Russia he is only saying to Obama, okay, I am seeing you what the other is telling you, but if you do something you will have problem with me. So be careful. So Obama is, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, Russia's last-minute save of Syria is really remarkable. If you look at how that worked, right? America was ready to attack Syria, and then within the last 48 hours before that would have happened, Russia came in and said, okay, Syria will agree to disarm all of their chemical weapons, right? It was a diplomatic victory. Yes, it was a big diplomatic victory. But Russia showed that they mean business, right? They don't just sit and say, okay, we'll let America do whatever they want, right? Russia does not mess around. Vladimir Putin is not the kind of guy you want to have as an enemy. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he's a guy he's a mafia boss, right? He knows how to play the mafia.
Yeah,
So,
even if Russia it was defending his interest in Syria, that there is a victory from Syria, because
absolutely.
Russia has a military base in Syria, and I read then there is very important to Russia, so they don't want to lose that base, and because that military base, I guess, uh, have a, that military base has has access to the ocean,
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
and that is the only road from to Russia to out to the ocean for that direction, and that is
Mm-hmm.
that is why it's very important not to lose that base.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much politics and so much happening behind the scenes. We don't really know. I mean, people nowadays, who is hearing about Syria? No one. I mean, it's not on CNN. Today, I watched CNN, nothing about Syria. Nobody, like I was telling Eka, nobody knows what happened to Libya.
Yeah,
Okay? Nobody knows. It was, they killed Gaddafi, and now, okay, I mean, is it better? Is it worse? Is it free? Is it bad? Is it good? Nobody knows anything.
yeah. For example, the last week uh, happens a good news in Syria. For example, the government could free all the people that were in hostage from the rebels in two cities, and
Yeah.
they saved them all, and they rescued them, and
Hmm.
that kind of news
You don't
you
hear.
see you can hear in CNN.
Uh-huh.
I have to read in another blog.
Yeah. I consider CNN international news to be garbage anyway. Uh, I don't know what they show on other CNN International. The channel is not bad, but the international news they show in the CNN in the United States is garbage. Right? They spend 5 minutes talking about some topic that doesn't matter, and then they talk about some either Kim Kardashian or her dog or some garbage story, right? So Domestically in the United States, CNN is garbage. If you want international news, you have to go to the internet. You have to do something else, right? Um, that's what's interesting about the situation here. Omar, did you want to say anything else? I think Eka left. It's just us
Yeah,
now.
yeah, teacher, of course. I think also there are problems with the China. They are support Syria, and Russia supports Syria with the government with the President Assad,
Hmm.
and they can't uh, uh, they can't fight like the another countries, like Saudi Arabia have plans with many countries. They hate the president, but it's difficult situation because there are a lot of heat, and they're not. I don't see any solution for any one solution, but I think I will agree with the news. They said Bashar will leave after 1 year, I think, and they will have a president, because I don't agree with the idea that the Muslims and the Qaeda fight the people, because the Qaeda don't look for the freedom of the people. They want attack the people. And I hear that the Qaeda, they have a problem with the army of the freedom in Syria, and they don't fight the president Assad. They fight the people, and that's something you can't understand. And the
Yeah.
solution, I think, it is with U.S. If they do something, no one gonna stop U.S. And
Mhm.
Russia can't do something. They can't attack U.S. because I think they have like nuclear weapon, and Russia have uh, uh, like big mind. They don't do something stupid to the big country in the world.
Well, Russia has nuclear weapons also, right?
Yeah, I know, but Russia start the nuclear weapon like before 14, 13 years. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but
Honestly, at this point, it's so early to tell, right, Omar? We don't know what's happening.
yeah, of course, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
It's a very difficult situation, just like we were talking, Saul, very difficult situation. Even people who live in the Middle East, like, we are hearing from somebody in Saudi Arabia, uh, Omar lives there. I was born there. I know a lot about just the culture of that part of the world, right? But that's the thing. Nobody knows. Even people who want to know can't find out because there are so many shadow things, things happening in the shadows. Who is working against who? Nobody knows. It's really complicated, and so we have to just wait and see, I guess. And my hope personally is that people don't get killed and destroyed. The Syrian culture, Syria is such a beautiful country, right? Historically speaking, it is one of the centers of the Muslim world, right? So, for example, the city of Damascus, the cities of um, Aleppo, and many of the other beautiful areas in Syria, the culture is being lost every single day, right? They're destroying buildings, historical buildings, mosques, churches. I mean, every location that is being attacked by army or militia or whatever, people are dying, right? So that's the biggest frustration, and nobody seems to care about those people. And so this is what we're going to talk about today with the refugees, right? Before we get to that, guys, let me just very quickly talk about the grammar that we are mentioning today. So when we are talking about count and non-count nouns, right? Count nouns are things that we can easily count, right? So for example, 5 chairs, 2 cups, 3 basketballs, 4 tables, right? These are things that we can count, right? Most nouns are count nouns, right? If you think of most things, we can count them. right? And we can make count nouns plural by adding s to the end or es to the end, right? I think you guys know this, but I'm just going to review real quickly. So, for example, 1 book, 2 books, 3 chairs, 4 chairs, right? We're adding the s at the end, right? And then, but we do have some examples of irregular count nouns as well. And these irregular count nouns are words that don't have an s or es at the end, right? So what's an example of a word that when we make it plural, we change the spelling and not just s or es? Sal, can you hear me? Or
What is the question?
what's an example of a word that we can make plural without adding s or es at the end? Like it's just a special type of word that we have a special rule when we are making it plural. Like let's look
Uh,
at yeah.
like maybe water.
Yeah, water stays water, right? Because it's a non-count noun, right? But what about a count noun? Like okay, let's take child. What's the plural of child? Is it childs?
No.
Children.
Children, right? So this is my question, right? What are some of these words that are count nouns that we have special rules to change them to make them
Oh,
multiple, to make them plural, right?
okay.
So child is one. What's
Uh,
another one, Raul? Or Saul,
the
sorry.
man, man,
Yeah,
man, man,
fantastic.
man.
Man becomes men, right? Man becomes
Yes.
man. Women or woman becomes women.
Woman, a women.
Women, exactly, right? Woman becomes women. What about the word for mouse?
Mouse. Interesting. I don't know. Mouse.
Uh-huh. Do you guys know Claudio? Welcome, man. How's it going?
Mouse,
Yeah.
maybe rat. I don't know.
Those are actually different, right? Those are actually different animals. So rat is rats, so it's normal. What about mouse? Omar, do you know?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't think it is mouse.
Rodent. Rodent.
Mouse becomes mice.
Mice. Wow.
Mice, yeah, it's a special example. It's a special type of word, right? So for some of these special type of count nouns, 1 mouse, 3 mice,
Oh,
right? 1 child, 3 children. 1 man, 2 men, right?
uh,
So these are special types. Yeah, go ahead, Sol.
you have to have. You have to wife and wife.
Wives, right? Wife becomes wives.
Yes.
So you have, for example, in some societies, a man has 1 wife. In other societies, a man can marry 3 wives, or 2 wives, or 4 wives, but not more than 4.
Well, if enough with one.
Yeah, enough. 1 is enough. Absolutely, I agree. But there are some societies where men can marry 2, 3, or 4 as well. So that's how we see special. That's a special situation, right? So these words are special situations. And then when we are talking about non-count nouns, so everything we talked about up to now was about count nouns, things we can count, right? Non-count nouns are things like water, sugar, salt, blood, oil, right? Oxygen, things that we don't count. You don't. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Claudio.
Money.
Money, exactly, right? Things like money. And there's a lot of other things like, milk, flour, rice, sand, right? All these kinds of things, general categories of things that we don't count, right? Um, Also, like general activities, like teaching, playing, right? They stay the same. Sports, football. I was watching a football game, right? I was watching a basketball game. They don't change. These are non-count. You don't count these things, right? Money is another one. Diseases, pneumonia, measles, mumps. These are all non-count. Subjects like science, mathematics, medicine, engineering, biology, right? These are all non-count as well. Um, so when we are so far, guys, any questions on this stuff between count versus non-count?
No, I'm okay.
No, okay.
Claudio's okay. Okay, and Omar, are you okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, fantastic. Let me know. And then, so for count nouns, guys, how do we compare count nouns when we are talking about if we have a lot of them or if we don't have a lot? We use um, fewer and more, right? So for count nouns, we use fewer and more. So count nouns, we use fewer and more. I have fewer children than my friend, right? It's a count noun. I have more children than my sister, right? So for count nouns, when we're comparing less versus more, we use fewer and more, right? When we're talking about quantity, right? Saul, can you give me an example of a sentence using fewer and any count noun that you want?
Okay. I earn a few dollars than my friends.
I earned fewer dollars than my friend, right? So that makes sense, right? Because dollar is a count noun, right? A dollar, $1, $2, $3, that's a count noun. But remember, Saul, money is a non-count,
Okay.
right? So because you said dollar, that's fine because dollar is a count noun, but money in general is a non-count, right?
Okay.
Omar, can you give me an example using a sentence with more and a count noun?
Okay, I watch more matches of I watch more match than my friend watch.
Uh-huh. So you want to make the match plural, right? How do you make match plural?
Maybe matches.
Matches, right? I watch more matches or more football matches than my friend,
Yeah.
right? Something like that, right? I watch more football matches than my friend. Last but not least, Claudio, how would we make a sentence using any count noun and let's say fewer?
Fewer.
Uh-huh.
And I I saw few children in that place.
Uh-huh. I saw fewer children at that place, right?
I saw fewer children at that place.
Exactly, exactly. Good job. So children, once again, we are talking about count nouns. We can use children, right? And we're using fewer. When it comes to non-count nouns, guys, we use more and less, right? So for non-count nouns, we use less, and I guess more stays the same, right? Because for count and non-count, we both see more. So we see non-count nouns, we see less and more, right? So there is less water in this jar than in that jar, right? Or there is less sand on this beach. There is more sand on this beach, right? That's how we use non-count nouns. And then let me think of another, so another thing that we want to be able to use is when we are talking about situations involving, we have less and more and fewer and more, right? But let's say that you have a lot of things that you want to talk about, right? With count nouns, we say too many. I have too many children, right? So for count nouns, we also use too many. What do you guys think is the way of saying that you have a lot when it's a non-count noun? Instead of too many, what would we say?
I
Too
have
much?
a lot.
A lot
Too
works,
much.
but too much, yeah, too much is actually a bit better, right? So there is too much water in this room or whatever, right? Maybe it's a big flood. That man has too much money, right? And then when we look at uh, a lot of, also Omar is correct, right? We can use a lot of when we are talking about either count nouns or not count nouns, right? A lot of water, a lot of children, a lot of coffee, right? Whatever you want to say, we can also use a lot of. And I think that's a good place to stop, guys. The rest of the stuff is actually very repetitive, and we want to be able to at least look at some of the other stuff that we wanted to talk about. So, any questions, guys, so far on count nouns and non-count nouns, as well as how we make them plural and how we say, for count nouns, we say fewer and more, and non-count nouns, we say less and more. Any questions on any of that stuff?
No.
Okay, Sal's got it.
That's okay.
Claudia's got it as well.
Yes.
And Omar, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. So let's take a look, guys, at this article. So we're talking about Syrian refugees in the United States, and some of it might actually be interesting to you guys, because I think Sal, I think you'll like it, because we've talked about this for 20 minutes at the beginning of class. So
Okay.
let's take a look at this. And so it's an article from Al Jazeera, which is a Middle Eastern newspaper, Middle Eastern media channel, I should say, probably the most famous Middle Eastern international channel. Okay, now, so let's open this up. The flagship, that's just their article. Why isn't America taking in more Syrian refugees? Here we see some pictures. You guys can watch the video later if you want, but this is a video of some Syrian refugees. Zahir al-Wattar, a Syrian-American handyman living in Columbus, Ohio, makes the same call nearly every day. He has been calling the U.S. State Department, which is the Foreign Ministry, asking them for help to bring his brother and his brother's family from Syria here to the United States. Al-Wattar describes his brother like a twin. They grew up together in Syria in the 1980s, sharing the same friends and same experiences, until Al-Wattar found himself in a Syrian prison. He still does not know the crime, but he knew once he got out, it was time to leave. Al-Wattar left Syria to study agriculture in the United States, and his brother stayed in Syria and became a doctor. Since Syria's civil war, doctors have become targets. Aiding the enemy, even providing medical care, makes them into the enemy. Al-Wattar's brother has another reason to fear as well: his children. Al-Wattar's nephew was killed last spring after going out for a walk. With the number of Syrian refugees now at more than 2 million, half of them children, the UN is calling Syria the world's biggest humanitarian crisis. But the US has only taken in 90 Syrian refugees since the civil war began. So this is the guy, Zahir al-Wattar, who lives in the United States, and he wants his brother to come to the US. For the Syrians that are abroad, for the refugees, the options are extremely limited, said Nadine al-Jijakli, a Syrian-American immigration attorney. Al-Jijakli gets emails from hundreds of families like al-Wattar's every day. There's no tangible refugee process for them to come to the United States, she explains. Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat from California, has an answer. About 6 months ago, I organized a letter to the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security to grant humanitarian parole to about 6,000 Syrians who are trying to be reunited with their families here in the United States. He says it's something we can do to help with the refugee problem. Obviously, just a small piece, given that there are millions of refugees, but here's an opportunity for us to do our part. Schiff has yet to hear a response. The U.S. has a generous track record when it comes to refugee resettlement. This year, 70,000 refugees, many of them from Iraq, Burma, Bhutan, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, are expected to find a home in America. The U.S. has also contributed an unprecedented $1.3 billion in emergency relief to Syrians, the highest in the world. But that doesn't help al-Wattar in his quest to bring his family here. In fact, the war makes it harder for Syrians to get even a visitor visa to the U.S., since this required proving that your visit is temporary. When conditions in your home country are so horrible, that is difficult to show. In August, the U.S. State Department said the U.S. would admit 2,000 Syrian refugees, but Larry Bartlett, director of the refugee resettlement at the State Department, told America Tonight that this 2,000 number will be shared among several different countries. He called it a humanitarian gesture. After countless calls and 3 voicemail messages, someone at the State Department finally picked up al-Wattar's call. Asked if this made him optimistic, al-Wattar replied, "Not really, but at least someone answered this time." For the refugees who are granted refugee status, the process can take over a year. For al-Wattar, the only other option is a family reunification visa, which can take up to 12 years. Al-Wathar's brother and his family did manage to escape Syria for Lebanon, but as a doctor, there are no work opportunities for him there. So until something better comes up, they are back in Syria, and Al-Wathar is praying for the best. So I think a very powerful article, right? We're talking about a guy whose brother is in Syria, he lives in the United States, and he's just trying to reunite with his family, right? And because of the war, because of all the pressures that are involved in coming to the United States, this is something that is not possible. At least it doesn't seem possible right now. What do you guys think about this article? Let's start with Claudio on the left.
Yes, and in my opinion, it's a awful situation because, in war is always in a difficult situation, and that those people are leave their countries because probably they didn't want the war. So in my eyes, it's a constrained situation because maybe it was peaceful peoples that now have no house, have no country to work and country to live. So of course they need to place to live, to work. But I know too, I can understand the position of the United States because in my opinion, you cannot just to get those person, but it's difficult to understand. In Brazil, I can say about Brazil because I know the Brazil situation, and I feel myself more comfortable to talk about my country because I don't know the really situation about their person, and in my opinion, they really must get some place to live. But in Brazil, we sometimes in our neighborhoods and came to Brazil to try get a good work, to try to get a good job because in Brazil in this moment are living a good moment if you compare it with 10 or 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And for another countries, it's a good moment to came to Brazil. And I know, in my opinion, all people are welcome in Brazil, but we need to prepare our seats to receive these people because if we have no structure to receive these people, they probably will not be happy in Brazil because they will not get job, they will not get house because we have a lot of Brazilians who lives in a poor situation. So if another foreigner came to Brazil without our country to be prepared to receive these people, and probably they will not have opportunity in our country. That's our situation, and I have been seeing these examples in Brazilian streets.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher,
Yeah. Go
sorry,
ahead.
but
Go ahead, Omar. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
can I ask Claudio, why always the price in the Brazil it is expensive for the people? And I know Brazil is not country like rich country, but I hear like the new phones like the iPhone or anything come to the country always have expensive. Then the price like 3 times or 2 times. I don't catch the Newton.
Yes, and Omar, I don't know if I've understood completely what you saying, but you was talking about cost of life in Brazil, that here is very expensive.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
yes, yes, and Brazil is very very expensive. I'm I guess that in this moment we are living in a kind of bubble of house business in Brazil in this time, you know. But um, and a small part of the population, and I need to say that the most informed part of the population are seeing that we live in a kind of bubble bubble house business. I don't know as I say, uh, what I need to say, but and in the moment in these days, if you would like to rent an apartment in my neighborhood, for instance, and one or two rooms, you will pay maybe $2,000 a month. It's a lot. And in Islam, in a Brazilian Islam, you will get in a house maybe to for 600, $800 month in Islam, and without basic 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 things to live, and
Uh-huh.
without government around you, and so you will pay $600. So and it's a basic salary, it's a basic income, it's the basic government income for a month. So if
Mhm.
you get a basic income, you will have just to pay your rent, not to pay your food, not to pay your entertainment and our things. That's very important in the life. So Brazilian is very expensive in this moment, but the income, the population income, not according the cost of our life in this moment. So I have seen a lot of friends and a lot of and colleagues to become poor the same way that they became rich, and 5 years ago they are becoming poor in this moment. It's very sad, but I hope that we will change the situation.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I think the responsibility. So, I mean, Omar, what do you make of this situation, right? Like, Saudi Arabia is relatively close to Syria. What about Saudi Arabia accepting some of these refugees?
Teacher, I think Saudi Arabia send the help to the people in Syria and give him money and don't help like the crazy people. I hear in Qatar they help some people, they fight against the government, and that's
Uh-huh.
battle. I think the time out, teacher, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 second, guys. Let me answer this phone real quick. I
Okay.
apologize. Oh, it's on a video. Sorry, guys. Um, سلام جونم. همین الان نمیتونم صحبت کنم دیگه، ازم کلینگا هستم دیگه.
باشه
آره ازم خب به زنگ میزنم. باشه خداحافظ.
باشه خدا
Sorry, guys. Uh, I'm sorry, Omar. So you were saying, unlike Saudi Arabia, Qatar has been sending money to the Syrian people, but they are also supporting. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, Omar.
Yeah, teacher, like I said, Qatar send weapon to some crazy people in
Hmm.
Syria and they fight. I don't get why they help the crazy people. I don't know if the same thing with Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
but
But
yeah.
but in terms of resettlement, I mean, is that something the Saudi government will maybe consider, right? Because really there are two countries that have the money and the ability to act as refugee relocation centers, right? Saudi Arabia is a rich country, a lot of land. I mean, you guys have space, you guys have a smaller population, right? It's one example. And Turkey, it would be the second example that comes to mind. Many of the refugee camps are already in Turkey. And I was in Turkey 2 months ago. Turkish people are very sympathetic to the Syrian issue, but I don't know if they are willing to accept so many Arabs into their country, right? That's a big problem. Turkish people are very Turkish, they are not Arabs. So it would make sense to me if Saudi Arabia maybe helps resettle these people, even if it's for a few months, or even if it's
You
for
know,
maybe 1 or 2 years.
teacher,
Yeah.
I think now we have a lot of people from Syria. They are studying in the college. I see a lot of people. They
Uh-huh.
come to some places and they want to study, and that's not happened in the past. Now there are a lot of people come to Saudi Arabia, and I think the government help the people. But there are a lot of people, thousands of people. We
Yeah.
can't help all of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that makes sense as well. We can't burden these other countries nearby simply because they are nearby, right? But honestly, guys, I mean, when I think of this issue, right, it's something that the United States is so far away from these people, right? I mean, and the process is so slow. If you want to become a refugee or if you want to come here to the United States as a refugee, it's a very long process, right? And I mean, do you?
Teacher, sorry,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
the weird thing about US, I hear in the news they just send 100 every month to US, and that's weird thing. There is a lot of thousand or million of people who just for a month send 100. That's
Yeah, it's very low, right? But
yeah.
I think the question is in the United States, people just don't know how bad the situation is in Syria because our media doesn't report on that information. We don't have the public is not aware of all of this stuff that is happening, like all the deaths and all the killings and all these bad things that are happening. The public really doesn't know. Even if the public knew, right? I think they would not want that many refugees to come to the U.S. because what most Americans would say. I think most Americans would say this is not our problem, right? Most Americans would
Yeah,
say this is not our problem, which is
but
unfortunate. Yeah.
you are the biggest country in the world, and some country want to help the Syrian, and you stop them, and that's difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It puts us in a very sticky situation, right? When it comes to what the United States can do. People look to the United States. People look to Canada. Canada is a refugee magnet, right? Canada is a huge country, super small population. So they love to take people from any country, anywhere, skilled people, especially, doctors, engineers, whoever, right? They do a lot of. And I think people in Canada are more open to foreigners than people in the US. We in the US, we love visitors. But if you tell me that you're going to stay and now you're going to take my job or you are going to compete for my job, and you don't. There are Americans here, just like we heard from Claudio. There are Americans who are poor, who don't have jobs, and now you are saying that you are coming here, refugee, taking my jobs. That is going to be a problem. Unfortunately, that is a problem when it comes to the U.S. People are unaware of the situation, and people are very, they just don't think this is their problem. This is Syria, Middle East, Iran, Iraq. Who cares? This is not, the U.S. did not attack Syria. It's not our problem.
Yeah,
That's just
teacher.
sad. It's sad, but that's the situation. Um, uh, any other questions, guys? I know we are beyond the end of class, but looking at the plural or looking at the count and non-count nouns, right? I guess in this article, the biggest count noun we see is refugee, right? Refugees becomes the plural. Um,
Teacher,
and
sorry,
then
but
yeah, go ahead, Omar.
before you go,
Yeah,
what's magnet? You said
a
Canada.
magnet.
Yeah.
A magnet is something that attracts metal, right? So,
Oh,
like if you have a north pole and a south pole, the two magnets they attach.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
I don't know what any other word or any other language what it is, unfortunately, Omar. But magnet is when two things attract. So if something is a magnet, it attracts things, right? So Canada is a refugee magnet. They attract a lot of refugees, right? A lot of people in many parts of the world who do not have a home. Many of them apply to Canada, and Canada accepts a lot of these people because they have a very small population, and they want people, they want foreigners. When I was in Canada a few years ago, I think 2 years ago, as soon as I crossed the border from the U.S. into Canada, everything looked different. People there they really value their culture more than in the United States. In the United States, everybody becomes American. In Canada, they retain their dress, their style of clothing. I saw, for example, Claudio, when I was in Canada, I saw a lot of women, Muslim women, were wearing their scarf. They're wearing their clothes, their kind of more traditional clothes, right? In the U.S., it's a little bit more rare. You can find it, but in Canada, as a percentage, I saw a lot more Muslims. I saw a lot more Hindus, a lot more Sikhs, people from different parts of India, right? It's a very diverse country. It's a magnet for people from everywhere in the world. So that's why I think maybe Canada is a better example than the U.S. But honestly, I don't know what will happen to these refugees. You know,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's a very sad. I think Turkey should maybe take some also, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, guys, any last questions? I didn't mean to bore you guys. I think I talked a lot in this
No,
class.
teacher. Thank
No,
you for
teacher.
your time.
No,
It's
absolutely.
I think the class was amazing. Thank you, and
Thanks a lot, Omar. I appreciate
thank
that.
you, Claudio.
oh, thanks, Omar. It was a good explanation, Farhan. I don't think that you talk too much. Yeah.
Let me know, because I do sometimes, guys. I do. Sometimes I go on. I could speak on Iran and Syria for 3 hours if you let me. So it's we don't want
Yes,
that.
because in my opinion, in Brazil we have a lot of problems too, and yeah, and, a lot of generations passed to the earth, and they saw a lot of too much problems to solve. But in my opinion, the best way to solve any problem is it's by in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
It's most important. So I'm really sad to suffering of Syrians
Yeah.
and I hope that it can solve
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. I think
as
that's the hope
soon
for
as
all of us.
possible.
Yeah, we don't know. I think we need a big change on the ground in Syria for the situation to improve. But we will wait and see, and we should keep the Syrians in our prayers, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, it was a great class. Thank you very much. And tomorrow morning, I'm teaching 3 classes. So in about 12 hours, I'll be teaching 3 classes. And then in the evening here, I should say, I'm going to be teaching 2 more classes. So whenever you guys want to join, you guys are more than welcome.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Awesome, guys. Take care. Have a good
Thank you,
day.
Farhan.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
take care, Claudio. It was a pleasure. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado.
Oh, obrigado a você. Obrigado a você.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Saul?
Hi. How are you?
Good, good, good. Good to see you. I was on another screen, so
Very,
I didn't notice you.
very late here.
Yeah, late here too. Is it 10 o'clock in Honduras?
Nicaragua.
Oh, Nicaragua. I forgot. Is it 10 o'clock?
No, it's 9 o'clock, but
9
it's
o'clock.
late here.
Yeah, it's
Everybody is sleep in this hour.
uh-huh. Yeah, no, for me, I don't ever notice that anymore because I live alone, so nobody else is sleeping here. But yeah, how have things been?
Fine. Here I am. I am. See you. Your topic is it how can I say it bring my attention because I was reading right now I was reading an image about Syrian. It's a little funny because they they try to explain the problem in Middle East and
Hmm.
it is very confused.
Yeah, super complicated. Nobody knows what's going on in the Middle East.
I
Even people who say they do don't.
Yeah, I want I want to share with you the image I was reading. It is very funny because if you did that article, you will think, oh, that is a whole mess. That
Yeah, let's see. Sir, Iran is backing Assad. Gulf states are against Assad. Assad is against Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood and Obama are against General Sisi. But the Gulf states are pro-Sisi, which means they are against Muslim Brotherhood. Iran is pro-Hamas, but Hamas is backing Muslim Brotherhood. It is all true, honestly. I had to read it a few times to understand. This is something that is true. Yep, yep.
yeah, I guess this article condensed all in a few words.
Yeah, it's crazy because the situation in the Middle East right now is, you have all these players, right? You have everybody from Iran and Hamas to Gulf states and Turkey. All of these people are playing this game, but the people who are really losing everything in this game are the citizens of Syria, right? The 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 innocent civilians in Syria are the ones that are getting completely. Nobody is talking about them, right? So when we look at the situation from the perspective of the Syrian civilians, right? The Syrian civilians are were driven from their homes, right? Many of these people have fled their homes because they have no way of staying where they are, right? If they stay, then they'll get killed. Or some of these groups are going to say, you can't live here, you need to get out, you know. The biggest thing about Syria right now is that the Syrian military is still fighting this civil war with the militias, right? So there are all of these militia groups throughout Syria who have, each one has their own agenda, right? And they're all fighting with each other. So one militia group, let's say militia, Obama is backing Muslim Brotherhood, yet Hamas is against the US. Gulf states are pro-US, but Turkey is with the Gulf states against Assad. Yet Turkey is pro-Muslim Brotherhood against General Sisi. General Sisi is being attacked, is being backed by the Gulf states. Welcome to the Middle East and have a nice day. Yes.
Yeah. It's a mix. I can't believe that.
This is something that is so normal, Saul, that it's almost at the point of this little piece does an amazing job of describing the situation.
Really?
Yeah.
I was reading the article and I was saying, oh my God, I don't understand nothing. Everybody hates to everybody, and everybody help to another.
Yep. That's exactly how it is. At the beginning, I mean, nothing. So at the beginning, it makes sense. So up to where he says Iran is pro-Hamas, but Hamas is backing Muslim Brotherhood. Up to that point, everything is good. But then after that, when he says Obama is backing Muslim Brotherhood, I don't know if that is actually true. Yet Hamas is against the US, that is definitely true. Gulf states are pro-US, that's also right. But Turkey is with the Gulf states against Assad. Yet Turkey is pro-Muslim Brotherhood against General Sisi. Yes, that part is also true. And General Sisi is being backed by the Gulf states. Yeah, it's all true. You know,